Excited to be joined once again on the program by the founding editor for Mediaite, Colby Hall. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. I saw that you recently wrote about Deborah Birx, who's been a really interesting figure in the last year. And she apparently is considering, regardless of what happens with the Biden transition team, she's apparently going to be retiring after that, right?
Yeah, the story that came out, she did an interview with an outlet called Newsy, which we covered. And basically, Deborah Birx revealed that she was willing to help the next administration, the Biden administration, with the sort of new version of the Coronavirus Taskforce, but that she had every intention to shortly after the Biden administration got all the help that they could get from her, that she wanted to retire. And the reason that she gave was that she didn't love the treatment that she and her family had received shortly after Thanksgiving, mostly by the media and of course the sort of predictable kind of naysayers on Twitter. The story was that she, during the holidays, it was reported that she went to a second home of hers in Delaware with her family. And of course it was sort of lumped into the stories of Gavin Newsom's dinner at French Laundry, the Austin's mayor's, telling his constituents to stay home from a condo in Cabo. So she was looped into, this hypocrisy. It's not clear that that's entirely fair. It appears that she's putting her house up for sale. And then she actually sort of revealed in this interview that, her family has not been immune to the same stress, depression, and frustrations that we've all felt amid this sort of self-quarantine lockdown, really strange, spooky, and surreal time. And she made it sound like less that she was like angry at her treatment and more that like she kind of needed to take care of her family because she's the primary breadwinner and it was a tough time. And she's sort of something of a controversial figure given the last 9 months of the Coronavirus Taskforce.
Yeah, and look, I certainly imagine it's been rough, being a public figure like that. She's had less of a distance between her and Trump than Dr. Fauci has for a very long time, but there's still probably a little bit of that. I imagine that she's probably been getting death threats on a daily basis for the last 6 months or so. That said, one thing that I wonder that didn't come up in that as one of the potential reasons was, I forget if it was Axios or who, but a couple of weeks ago they were saying that she was apparently angling to try to, like Dr. Fauci, move into the Biden administration, but that the word was that she was considered too toxic and that the American people don't necessarily trust her. Have you heard anything about that as a potential factor?
I read the similar report, and I don't know any insight as to exactly what her ambitions were. I will say that, I will be more charitable with her and say that, after the last 9 months of being in the Trump administration amidst this horrible pandemic, I don't blame her for wanting to step down and retire. That said, it immediately begs the question of what is Dr. Birx's legacy, right? Is she someone that was sort of like the public health expert that helped save lives by reiterating the importance and the severity of this issue, or was she something of an enabler to President Trump and his his dangerous, crazy herd immunity? I suspect that she would argue that, predictably, that she would say something like, "If I were there, it would have been much worse," and that's true. But that overlooks the fact that she could have very easily been public and said, "Hold up, red flags. You don't want to know. Here's what's really saying." And I think, DC rewards a craven set of operators who are unwilling to take chances and risks. And I think that's what she is. I mean, I think she swallowed her tongue. She didn't say her bit when it was most important. And now I think her legacy is as much a Trump enabler as it is, a public health expert at a time where we really need smart public health experts.
Yeah, I think she will be remembered most for sort of just existing, and we don't know exactly what she did behind the scenes, but in terms of publicly speaking out against either Trump individually or the administration's response or Mike Pence or whatever, I didn't see a lot of that. But one thing that she did say early on that I'm always going to remember is she talked, and this was in just the first few weeks of the US version of the pandemic, she talked about how Trump Like you only have to explain one medical or scientific thing to him once and he gets it. Like nobody gets it as fast or as easy as him. He understands it better than doctors. And I remember at the time being blown away by that. And I assumed she's gotta be a crazy Trumper if she's talking about him in that way. But she doesn't, in hindsight, really seem to have been to talk about the guy that would go on to promote hydroxychloroquine and talk about UV lights and bleach in those terms. Strike me now as one of the most insane parts of the pandemic from a public relations point of view.
Well, I mean, exactly right. Well, totally agree with that. I will say that, sort of as I kind of alluded to earlier, ambitious people inside the Beltway, politicos, are by and large all sycophants, right? The Trump administration and this White House in particular really rewards. It's like sycophancy on steroids. It's at a higher level. And I think that she fell into that trap. And I'm not trying to defend her. I think that was, she probably regrets, and she deserves every bit of criticism. You raised a question earlier about like you're not really sure what she did. I mean, I will say that what she sort of spearheaded. I mean, if you remember, like in sort of after 4th of July weekend, June, July, we saw like cases spiking. First it was Arizona, Texas, Florida, and California, and then spread through a bunch of other Midwestern states. And she was the one that spearheaded like sort of state by state, governor, health, like here's what you need to do to abate that. And when you saw, like if you see the chart, it went down in August. I think you can largely give her some credit for abating that spread. But she may have won that small battle and lost a much larger war because she was part of a crew that basically waved the white flag in this war on the coronavirus. So yeah, I mean, she was a suck up, and she was a suck up that kept her space in power. And I think that's probably as much her legacy as the scarves that she wore that were so fetching. Coronavirus Taskforce, which is probably an unfair criticism, but that was certainly her iconic image.
Yeah, and one that Donald Trump pointed out himself. Yeah, so complicated legacy. As with everything of 2020, we're gonna have to see, what people remember and what eventually fades away. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.